Major support for this program is provided by Johnson & Johnson, known the world over for healthcare products for the entire family. We're proud to support this program because we believe keep the children well and you keep America's future healthy. Additional support is provided by the Annie E. Casey Foundation, helping to build a better future for America's disadvantaged children, and the Van Ameringen Foundation, the Charles Stewart Mott Foundation, and the Frederick and Amelia Schimper Foundation.
Today is a high point in the romance of Bob and Mary. For them, the future looks bright.
I got pregnant when I was 14. And I didn't know anything about sex education. I didn't know anything about birth control.
Most family problems can be solved through frank and friendly discussion, which points the way to a happy family life.
I'm absolutely petrified that I'm going to get really mad, grab something, and swing.
I like little Chucky. Someday he'll understand why I work so hard to earn a living for our family.
Me not having a father, that didn't make me angry. What made me angry was seeing other people with fathers.
Every week, Father comes home with money for Tommy and for Mother. Money Father earns by going out and working for his family.
He was the one that, helped me have her, so he should deal with the responsibilities. And he doesn't have any responsibility towards her.
Dinner time is happy time for this family. They talk about the good things that happen each day.
I begged him to let me call the police, to have them to come and take her out of my home.
Television in the 1950s and 60s presented a narrow definition of the typical American family. It was white and middle class, the father was the sole breadwinner, the mother stayed home to raise the children and run the house. That image has been shattered by dramatic changes in family structure over the past generation. Today, 2/3 of mothers with school-age children work outside of the home. Half of all marriages end in divorce. And 70% of all children spend part of their childhood in a single-parent home. In response, some have called for a return to the traditional family, but efforts to force people to conform to a rigid vision of the family are doomed. This program is not about the divisive debate over family values. Instead, it's about a quiet revolution in human services known as the Family Support Movement, which is strengthening families of all sizes and configurations. During the next hour, we'll examine several promising examples of how these family support programs can prevent some of our society's most costly and painful social problems. Behind the walls of these unencumbered schools, kindergarten teachers report that more than 1/3 of all children entering school are not ready to learn. Too often these children are placed in special education programs, which cost more than $10 billion a year. Most of these children will never complete high school, and their risk of school failure is often compounded by living conditions in our nation's inner cities. In Walnut Park, a low-income neighborhood in St. Louis, Missouri, ravaged by poverty, drugs, and violence, an astonishing program is giving new hope to families and children. This 5-year-old program is called Caring Communities, and it's headquartered in the Walbridge Elementary School. The program's director is Khatib Waheed.
Children who live in high-risk neighborhoods quite often bring negative baggage with them to school, rooted in some social, some psychological, some economic deficits. So our concept is we address the non-academic issues. We remove the barriers that preclude school success so that the teachers can teach.
Find those words, so let's read it again. Black. Very good. Hey, you got that word too. I like that.
7-year-old Andrew Leach is a good example of the kind of child who often falls through the cracks. He's been diagnosed as being hyperactive with an attention deficit disorder and already has repeated kindergarten.
If you don't recognize an attention deficit early enough, the child will gradually fall behind. so that at some point he will begin to lose interest in school. And as a result, quite often will begin to either withdraw or he will begin to act out.
Andrew, no. Come back, Andrew. You need to have a seat. Andrew?
Caring Communities does not allow Andrew to walk away from his problems. The staff is always available to provide extra supervision and support.
Come down, Andrew.
Andrew is not alone. 90% of the children in this community are considered at risk for school failure or involvement with the mental health, foster care, or juvenile justice systems.
Yes, you do. Come on, let's have a seat and get your work done.
To help Andrew overcome his behavior problems and learning disability, Caring Communities provides one-on-one attention in daily sessions with counselors like Patricia Patton.
How do you think you've done so far?
Good.
Think you've done good? You've stayed in your seat 12 out of 16 days. So that's pretty good. I think your mom will be pretty pleased. What do you think?
Yeah.
Think she will?
In addition to the regular school day, Caring Communities offers children and parents a broad range of services and activities after school. Nationwide, there are an estimated 10 million latchkey children who come home from school to an empty house. At Caring Communities, the after-school latchkey program operates year-round, much to the relief of working parents.
What we say in Caring Communities with regards to our goals is that we want to ensure school success for every child, and we want to involve the family in that process. We want to keep the children out of the juvenile justice system, and this involves not only the family but the community in that effort.
Caring Communities recognizes that success at school depends largely on a stable family life at home. Jeanette Leach, who is raising Andrew and 4 other children by herself, not only receives home visits, she also comes to the school once a week to discuss her child's progress with Patricia Patton.
Because Andrew has an attention deficit, there are a couple of concerns that I have. One, that he definitely continue to have structure.
Jeanette Leach was worried about Andrew because the previous school he attended labeled him a problem child and forced him to repeat kindergarten.
I don't want to go to school. He got to a point that he hated school. He did not want to go to school, and Andrew made sure that he wasn't going to pass that grade. And if he said, it's like if the teacher didn't care, Andrew didn't care. She gave up, so Andrew gave up.
Why don't you go with me? Let's go for a cool walk in the forest. We can cool ourselves.
Without a Caring Communities program, Andrew may not reach his full potential. Andrew could become a statistic, given the environmental factors, the violence, the random shooting that occurs in neighborhoods like this, could claim an Andrew Leach's life.
The concern about Andrew's future is not idle speculation. St. Louis has one of the highest murder rates in the country. Last year alone, 23 children were killed here. To rally the community against the drugs and violence that are destroying its children, Caring Communities organizes monthly anti-drug marches.
The drug march sends the message to the children who can become someday a potential consumer that there is a better way. It sends a message to the drug dealer that your attitude, the way of thinking, the behavior has got to go. We are at war for the minds, the souls of our children and families.
Caring Communities has developed an Afrocentric curriculum. In addition to teaching the basics of reading, writing, and arithmetic, they build pride and self-esteem.
Whenever Miss Banks comes to your classroom, she wants to show you some things from Africa. These are called shaker rays. Can you say
Unfortunately, in our society, there have been periods in our history where the emphasis on the positive aspects of African and African American culture have been ignored.
Before there was paper, the Egyptians made papyrus, and they put things on papyrus and this is what this paper is made out of, that they wrote on. That's why I always like to collect things like this, so that you can see that we are very intelligent. Our people before us are very intelligent. You should remember that, because that means that you can do great things.
The African-centric or Afrocentric concept is embodied in our concept of the African proverb, which says, it takes a village to rear a child.
I want all of you to learn as much as you can possibly in this world, in this classroom, and from your teacher, that you can become a great man or woman, like Dr. Martin Luther King, or Sojourner Truth, or Harriet Tubman, or your mother, or Miss Johnson.
Supporting children and strengthening families pays off. The improvement on standardized tests for children in caring communities was 2 to 3 times greater than for students at a comparison school. They've achieved this success because caring communities won't settle for anything less than a 100% commitment from its children, parents, and staff. Without early intervention, half of all boys with Andrew's diagnosis end up being arrested for juvenile delinquency, and a quarter are placed in mental health or juvenile justice institutions.